Hello, Solmukohta. I am Eirik Fatland, and this here is my third retrospective. Some of you might have been to my very first retrospective at Knutpunkt in 2018, where I talked about how I personally invented everything good about Nordic Larp in the late 90s. I'm pretty sure that all of you were at my second retrospective in 2029. After all, we Nordic Larpers are not known for our ability to recruit new people to the scene. So without further ado, I'll go straight to the new material. This is my third retrospective. The first LARP I did of this decade was called LARP, actually. Now, I don't know how many of you remember VRP, virtual role-playing. It was big in the late 20s. And it's no longer big. And why is it no longer big? Well, because I destroyed VRP. And I did so after some heavy flame wars on Twitter with various VRP activists and VRP designers and VRP academics and so on about whose form of art was the superior form of role-playing. Of course it was LARP, but I had to prove it to them, and I did so by taking a VRP called Actually and turning it into a LARP. And since Actually was very highly regarded in the VRP community, I got quite a lot of players willing to try out this LARP thing as long as they got to play Actually. Now, LARP actually was an astounding success. The players really enjoyed it. And so most of the VRP crowd joined the Nordic LARP community, stopped doing VRPs, and of course, as Nordic LARPers, stopped recruiting new people. And hence, VRP is dead. It was fairly interesting going from VRP to LARP, because the VRP crowd couldn't really conceive of role-playing without their own body looking exactly the way they imagined their character's body to look. So most of the players actually had to undergo DNA and RNA therapy to become taller, shorter, the correct sex for the character, and so on. So it was a rather LARP that left rather permanent marks on its players, which is why I prefer LARP the way we do it. Now, after destroying VRP, I decided that it was time to make some proper LARP again. In 2033, I directed and facilitated Redbox. It was a LARP about Maoists in a Western European country in the 70s. The characters are terrified of being accused of bourgeois deviation, or doing and thinking things that broke with Mao Zedong thought. They engage in regular self-criticism sessions. If someone is found to be guilty of bourgeois deviation and did not preempt the accusation through appropriate levels of self-criticism, well, in that case, they are shamed and ostracized. Usually, by the end of the LARP, there are only 2 Maoists left. This inspired my next LARP called The Good Guys. The Good Guys is about a group of 12 friends who see themselves as the good guys, the heroes, and the pillars of their community. However, they all have skeletons in their closet, and as those skeletons emerge, they struggle to reconcile the inconvenient truths with their image of themselves and their friends as the good guys, and they try to protect themselves and each other. It doesn't work. One by one, they are arrested, they're killed by vigilantes, they're publicly ostracized by the media, and they become ghosts. And at the very end of the LARP, you have the ghosts of all 12 explaining to each other how, despite everything, they are still the good guys. Now, at this point I found myself with some excess time on my hands. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention the Good Guys did win the new Otto Award for the most depressing scenario of the year, the most prestigious award in all of Nordic LARPdom. But anyway, with Otto in hand, I went on to spend my excess time to work on a book. Now, I've been working on this book since 2003. I've published excerpts of it. I have given various publication dates. I've taken sabbaticals to write it. But after 30 years, I felt it was time to finally get it published, which I succeeded in. Who May Create was published by Eirik Fatland Press in 2035. You can see the ISBN number up on the slide, and it has the additional title of LARP Design and the Participatory Revolution. And it received many reviews. Many reviews, 3 reviews, which is quite a lot when you consider that almost nobody reads books these days. And I was very happy to receive reviews. I'd especially like to read to you this most positive review by Dr. Sirpa Väsinen. A true cornucopia of outdated ideas. This will be indispensable for scholars who research the archaic years of Nordic Larp. And I brought some copies of this book with me here to Solmukohta, so if you'd like a copy, just talk to me after the retrospectives, and I'll be happy to provide you with one. I'll also provide you with a case of free beer. Just please help me get rid of the books. I don't have space to sleep. After this adventure in the publishing world, it was time to get back to LARP design again. And so I worked on realizing what some in the 90s had thought was the holy grail of LARP design. It was a LARP where fiction would become fact, where the imagined would become real, a LARP that might sustain itself indefinitely. I worked with a carefully selected group of 7 players for 3 months of workshopping. I poured all of my skill into a LARP design that would create generative content indefinitely. The LARP started on June the 1st in 2036, and I drop by the sacred simulation every few months to make sure that the players have enough food, enough water, and that nobody is seriously injured. Last time I checked, they were still fine. And so finally, we have perhaps my most significant work of this decade. Now, it was not Europa. I'm mentioning Europa because that was a LARP I was part of organizing in 2001 about the fictive refugee crisis. But it's kind of the backdrop to the LARP that I actually did produce. You see, a couple of years ago, I found my old notes from 2017 when me and Elin Nilsson and Jørn Slemdal were working on a project called The Fall of Europa, which would be kind of a sequel to the original Europa. Now, The Fall of Europa would feature a group of Scandinavian refugees in a Central European country, exposed to pressure both from the bureaucracy of state and from an increasingly xenophobic and nationalistic movement in their host country. Things would come to a collision, and the main questions the Fall of Europa would ask is what is the price of eroding this foundation of rule of law, of human rights, of internationalism and solidarity? Where will this lead us as a society? Of course, the Fall of Europa was cancelled in 2017. We never held it, we never announced it. We stopped at the point where we were looking at locations, because reality kind of seemed to move faster than fiction. The Syrian refugee crisis was receiving a major backlash across European countries. You had Trump in the first in the US, for example, Viktor Orban in Hungary, and it seemed like reality was moving faster in the direction the Fall of Europa was intended to warn about than we could produce LARPs about it. However, when I found the notes of Fall of Europa, I realized that, if we ran it not back then as a what might happen, but if we change a few things, we could run it today as a historical documentary about the events of the 2020s, and that's exactly what I did. The Fall of Europa was played in 2038 with 30 players times 4. And was, if I dare say so, it was a critical success and produced many strong play experiences and new reflections about our recent past. However, it also did attract the attention of the government. And the government rewarded me for the Fall of Europa by providing me with 2 years of free food and free lodging at a happy re-education camp in the mountains. And I just got out of there last week. I stand now corrected as a productive and loving member of our glorious homeland. And that brings me to my next LARP. And at this point, I should probably assure you all that behind that camera, there is not a man with a gun, and it is not pointed towards me. So my next project, upcoming, is called The Patriots, and it's a true story of how we defeated the degenerates and achieved national greatness. It will correct all the errors of Fall of Europa and present this true story. It also is government funded, so you can attend for free. Sign up telepathically. It's February 2041. What's that? Merry Solmukohta, and thank you.